All right, we are live. Welcome to the Live with Sondra show, where today we're going to be talking about how the best brands in the world don't just create great experiences, they create emotional anchors and an attractions that starts long before the guests walk through the gates and continues long after they leave. And as always, we're going to start with a couple audience questions because we do have the chat open for you today. If you'd like to join us in the conversation, questions I have for you are: how do you currently incorporate storytelling into your attraction's guest journey or brand messaging? Also, what's one challenge your attraction faces in trying to extend its experience beyond your physical location? So, those are things I want you to think about as we go on this journey today together and have a conversation with today's guest. But before we get started, I want you to know that today's show is brought to you by Gatemaster Technology. Your attraction deserves more than a patchwork of technology programs and systems. If you've outgrown your current software or you're dealing with endless workarounds, it's time to look at a smarter solution. Gatemaster offers a complete all in one platform built specifically for the attraction industry with tools that actually talk to each other. Like legit, they were built from its inception to work together. So none of this patchwork stuff, bolt-ons, as we like to call them in tech. And our team at Gatemaster makes the switch simple, fast, and fully supported so you don't lose momentum. Visit gatemaster.info/replacement to see more. I don't know why I'm tongue-tied right now. Let's just start over with that. Visit gatemaster.info/replacement to see more, or to see how more operators are making the move to Gatemaster. All right, so here we go. It's going to be one of those days. I can already tell we're going to get started, but I think you're really going to enjoy today's guest. So let's get back to this show. Today, we're going to be talking about storytelling magic, building brands for attractions. The questions about storytelling and extending the guest experience are beyond the gates are exactly what we in the industry need to be asking ourselves. And that brings me to today's guest, Peter Jude Ricciardi. He had spent over 15 years at Disney and is the founder of Brandartica, where storytelling isn't just a department, it's the entire foundation of a business. He's now helping brands and destination craft narratives and stick long after the lights go out and the rides end. We're talking about someone who understands how to build emotional resonance into every layer of your brand. And I'm very excited to welcome Peter to the stage. Peter, I'm very excited to have you on the show.
Up the irons. Up the irons. Oh,
Oh,
look, I've got my
wow.
thing on. I didn't realize that was
Special
happening.
effects and
Oh,
everything.
God. Well, you'll get the bill.
Hey, Peter, did I get that right, Brandartica?
Yeah, Brandartica.
Okay. I
Yep.
want to make sure so the audience knows what we're talking about here and how to get a hold of you. I hope that bio was okay. Is there anything else that we need to know about you before we get started? Because I do have some big questions for you.
No, I live in New Hampshire with my wife and two daughters, 10, just turned 10, and one just turned 13. So there's a whole lot of going on, but it's all good. We've got a pup named Maybe. She's a red-bone coonhound, and two cats, one named Winston Leandre Bishop, and the other one's named Paul Genslinger.
I love that. I have an 18-year-old daughter.
Oh, goodness.
I have two boys, too, at 15
boy.
and 13.
Yeah. You're in the middle of it. No,
I'm in the middle of it.
That's
You are
it.
too.
We're here. We're sweating to the oldies today in New Hampshire with the humidity and the heat, but it's all good. My garden loves it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, thank you for being here today. I'm really excited to dive in with you because what I'm really curious to know is how do we take the magic beyond the parks?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I think that it all starts. It has to start outside the park, obviously. But once you get someone into the park, you mentioned I worked at Disney for 15 years. Now, I had never been to Disney before in my life. I knew full well what it was. I worked in the marketing and media side, so it wasn't like I was in the park all the time, but I got a full-on crash course sprint, education in all things Disney and all things brand and all things branding and consistency and ethics and values and that sort of a thing. And we can talk about it later how I ended up there, because that's about the weirdest story ever. Um, but like what you're asking is how do you extend that experience? And starting in the park, everything from where the trash goes, everything from the way the place is laid out, and even the pitch of the everyone's probably heard the story about the pitch of the path to and from the castle. um, it's all intentional. And they took the time to measure what how frequently, how many feet does someone walk before they need to drop a piece of trash. They figured all that data out
Wow.
and put a trash can at that exact distance everywhere in the park. And it's one of the reasons why it's so clean, plus the people that work there keep it that way. But on that note, when I talk about experience and extending the experience, one thing that always comes up to me, and it works in my business too as a branding agency, is that when you get off a ride at Disney, where do they drop you? They drop you in the gift shop.
Yeah.
They got you. You're already
Yep.
been got. So there's that intention there. And then outside the park, you're looking at, now things are much different with virtual reality and platforms like that, for like Meta and Oculus and all those other ones, where even in the advertisements, you don't get a big. And again, this is where people make the mistake. I think that you're not talking about how this ride is this and that ride is that, and it's this, it's fun, and da, da, da. They're showing you an experience. So when you view advertising for some of the most successful attractions and destinations, they have that consistency of experience online, in the park, in their social media. The storytelling is top notch, chef's kiss, if you will. And they extend it into all areas of their media and marketing. And that is a place where people can really win or lose,
Yeah.
competitive edge. So that's in a nutshell, I think,
Yeah.
answers.
No, I think I think this is such an important topic because, one of my mentors, and something that, and actually part of why I do this show, he said to me, he said, we got to be omnipresent with our branding, right? You got to be everywhere so people know you. We, we go to Disney
Mm-hmm.
because we know and trust them because of all the things that they're doing to communicate with us all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it is really important, this conversation that we're having today, to make sure that maybe those brands that aren't Disney are also taking that same approach. They still have to be out there. They still have to communicate. They still have to
Absolutely.
be top of mind in order to be
Absolutely.
successful.
What's interesting is, and this was something I kind of coined on my own at Disney. I'm not saying I came up with it. I used to call it Trojan horse marketing. And I see a lot of places that whether it's like one of those water park resort lodge places or what have you, and there's a lot of like wham bam wham, party party party, fun fun fun, kids in the pool, kids in the pool, kids in the pool. I mean, frankly, as a parent, that's the last place I want to go. um, I don't want to be there for that. But that said, there's the Trojan horse marketing is really meant to take an important message and wrap it in something different so that it's digestible and attractive and compelling. So even to the part of, let's just stick with the water park idea. You can tell me all day about how much fun it is and how extreme the rides are and blah, 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 blah. Hey, that's a given. It's supposed to be like that.
Right.
So, if you're going to market, sure, market that way, do it. Those messages are important. They can be effective and they're needed. I wouldn't ignore that. But I would also look at the things that matter to people that are your buyers, the parents. The kids may plead to go to this one place, but it's the parents that make the decision. The parents are the ones with the wallet or the purse or the checkbook that make the actually take the action. So I go, what's important to them?
Right.
Are you telling them that the extreme slide is extreme? You could tell them that. But also maybe consider talking about water safety and water park ethics and water park values and water park, how to stay safe in the water. It's not about a sales message. It's about promoting a message that, is hard to argue with. It's like, for a car company to promote seatbelt safety and don't text while driving, for God's sakes. Your most important assets are in the back seat. You don't have to tell me how great the car is. I'll figure that out and I'm going to hear it one way or another anyways. But once you share the shared beliefs and respect the values of the people that are actually making the decisions, I think that builds the relationship. And that's what Disney's done so well, is build the relationship with people. So it's not a question of what's so great about this or that there. It's about, it's a safe place to be. It's a place where I will get my value and everyone will have a good time. And they value my kids as much as I do.
Yeah.
Whether it's
Yeah,
true
that's
or not, who knows?
I love what you said about the values, like the shared values, because
Yeah.
I do believe that so many companies are not letting people know who they are when it comes to that, right? And
Mm.
you're right, and it's such an easy thing to market.
Hmm.
I work with a lot of parks who
Yep.
are often asking me, "What should we be talking about?" And I think that's like start there, the very
Yeah.
least. That's an
Yeah.
easy one to start with.
I love those parks. There's big and small. I like the small ones that are really, you know, they're kind of boutiquey or
Yeah,
old school vintage, if you will. And I remember trying to land a client that was a park up in the White Mountains of New Hampshire. I had proudly never been there before, but like once I had kids, I was like, "You got to go, dude. You got to go." And I remember going and being like, "Geez, man, it's super cool. The kids are really young. They don't see any of this stuff. They don't notice the stuff that maybe I'm noticing." And I thought, this place would benefit from a coat of paint. Uh, you know, members or staff members that were more informed and more accessible, even down to like the speakers that played
yes,
music or messages. They were broken and defunct. And I did go to them and I said, "Look, I came from Disney. This was my experience and I'd love to share it with you. And I think that there's a way to, hey, let's upgrade these speakers. Let's upgrade the paint. Let's make this a little bit nicer." And really just make sure that people that come here are getting the full Monty. And it didn't pan out. I'm sure they did plenty of things beyond that. But I remember thinking there are so many simple ways you can um, look big, act big. You don't have to be a big park, but you can take on the values and the best practices of those places, imitate, duplicate, and really succeed. So I
yeah,
think that those are important for the smaller parks or medium parks to, realize and recognize.
yeah. That's interesting. That's really interesting because I think there is something to be said about kind of mimicking and then mastering, and you actually have a lot more freedom as a small boutique park to be able to implement these things. Because let's be real, it took what Chick-fil-A 6 or 8 years to get everyone to say my pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
With a
Yeah.
smaller company, you can roll something like that out much faster.
And
And
at the end of the day, I'm more of a renegade, and I like to cut against as much grain as possible. But when you work for a company, you work for them, and when a company tells me, "Yeah, I can't make my staff do that. They're not going to do it," and I go, "I don't understand. Like, who's running the asylum here?"
right,
You know,
yeah,
saying it's my pleasure is such a simple, easy peasy way to create a consistency, a golden thread, if you will, that ultimately makes a huge difference. People start to recognize it. It becomes part of your brand. And that's not a hard thing to do, you know?
yeah. Oh, we're talking about it,
Yep. I
right?
love it.
Like,
I love that.
like, and when I think about Chick-fil-A, I mean, my daughter got a job there.
Yeah,
She
cool.
actually, so we tried to get her to come work for us, and we said, okay, we'll go, come work for us. She's like, I'm gonna go get a job at Chick-fil-A, and she worked at Chick-fil-A for a number of months, and then was like, yeah, mom, I'm gonna come work for you. Still love Chick-fil-A, but the thing that I do love about that experience was, one, seeing what you're saying. Their training was well thought out.
Mhm.
They everyone went through the same training. I think that's part of what you're saying with regards to the branding, especially because that my pleasure, when they say that, that's their brand.
That's
That's
right.
what you think of when you think of them, and
That's
it's
right.
always a pleasant experience. I don't think I've ever had a bad experience at Chick-fil-A,
Yep.
right? With
You
regards to how the staff treated, but
absolutely.
that kind of reminds me of a question that I have for you in terms of like common mistakes businesses make when
Sure.
trying to tell their brand story. How can those attractions in our audience maybe avoid those things?
Yeah. I think that some of the ways to you have to start with a foundation that's consistent. We've talked about that. But how do you get that? It doesn't come out of thin air.
Sure.
And, I've worked, our agency works with a variety of brands and companies and in various industries. And the one thing that always holds true is that consistency and storytelling. Is it a story that can be duplicated and told by everybody on the team? It's simple enough to sort of grasp and remember and understand, and it feels natural. Those are places where you would want to start. The other part of that is, you know, look at the operation. Take a good hard look at your operation and the day to day. My biggest advice for anybody in that industry is whether you're an owner or a founder or a CEO or whatever, go find out what the people really do. Don't assume you know what they do. Like, if you haven't walked half a mile in their shoes yet, you really need to. I mean, and I've done it. I see this work both ways. At Disney, I remember, bitching about stuff like that and, wasn't popular. But I had a chance to sit in a director position for somebody. And I had told them, I said, why don't you sit in my studio for a while and try doing what I'm doing, for 8 hours straight. And then, I was sat in their office for 8 hours and I hated it. And it made me go, huh, sales is no joke. I suddenly
Yeah.
realized what these salespeople are up against on a daily basis. Whereas for me as a creative, I was like, it's not creative enough. I'm pushing this narrative, I'm pushing that thing. And they were like, yeah, no, 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 the client already wants this. And I'm like, why? And then I realized that these guys are up against some serious numbers and deadlines and issues. Once you have that understanding, it makes it a lot easier for an entire brand to start to row together in the same direction. So,
Yes.
I mean, to me, that's something you could do tomorrow. Just
Yeah.
go check out go serve ice cream for a half hour. See how
Yep.
much that sucks or how great it is. There's wasps everywhere. I don't know. Think about this. And,
Yeah.
if there's still questions, bring that ice cream person or the soda jerk up to your office and see how they like dealing with, logistics and
So
supply
true.
chain. Right.
Yeah, this is so true. I mean, at the time, with all the parks we work with, the amount of times we've had to tell them, "Have you actually walked out there and saw what's happening?"
Yeah. Yeah.
We'll get a call, something's wrong,
Yeah.
and from a person who never even bothered to go over and look,
That's right. And on the
right?
brand side, right? Here's the thing, and we just talked about this on a LinkedIn Live with somebody else earlier today. Just going, when you look at your branding, you've got to invest in your branding and your creative. I see a lot of these businesses do well. We're doing it in house, and that's fine. But you got to be sure the people that are doing it in house that this is what they do and this is what they live and breathe and die for. Because if it isn't, you cannot dabble in social media. You can't dabble in everybody's got access to Canva. And I love Canva. No, no, I say take Canva, use it, break it, make it work hard, make it sweat. Nothing that comes out of there should ever look like it came out of there. And I can tell when I see it.
Yeah.
But I go, you can't cut corners on that aspect of your outgoing brand identity because you're going to have to now spend, let's say 40% of your budget goes into that creativity zone. And now 60% of your budget may get spent on actually taking that product into the, universal public space. So if you have lousy or shoddy corner cut bootstrapped creativity going on over here. You're just spending more money to put it out and into people's faces. And that is a direct, what your package looks like, what the in an attraction or in a theme park. I judge a theme park on its bathroom. Same with restaurants. If I go in the bathroom and the bathroom's gross, I don't want to eat here.
Yes.
There's no
100%.
excuse for it.
Right.
So hopefully,
100%.
yeah, I hope that makes some sense to some people that, when you're doing the branding, it's not just the user experience, it's how you're presenting.
Yeah. No, I 100% agree. It's how you're presenting, because one of the things, and I don't want to give a spoiler, because Tiffany, who's on my team, is writing an article right now exactly on that. That what your bathroom says about your business, right? Because we we all feel this way. Many of the reviews are going to talk about it, right? And you don't want to see that in there.
Yep.
But also, I think what you're saying, what you said earlier about talking about what you're doing, talk about having clean bathrooms.
Yeah.
Because if you're
Yeah.
talking about it, your team's going to do it.
Right.
Because it's a
Right.
promise that you're making too, which is what
Yeah.
I really am enjoying about this conversation today, because I think it's super valuable information in terms of helping businesses understand that it's not always about talking about the rides or whatever that looks like you said, because we know the kids are going to love those regardless.
Mm-hmm.
And they probably won't even notice what the bathroom looks like. But the
Mm-hmm.
people paying the bill do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And they are
Yep.
the ones that you need to have these conversations with. And also what you said about marketing and awareness and sales, 100%. My husband and I are both performance coaches. And one of the things that I think is really interesting when you're dealing with sales is that marketing is senior to sales. So if it's not congruent, it's very difficult for the salespeople, because in that job of making people aware, and maybe the sale is somebody in my position where we're just a ticketing system.
Sure.
We can build these big, beautiful ticketing systems, but if you didn't tell anybody about it, or you didn't share it with people, or they can't find it, it makes my job a lot harder, right?
If you are having a dinner party and you set the table and you went and got the ingredients and you spent all day crafting these dishes, but never sent out the invites, why are you surprised that no one came?
Yeah, right.
So on that invite side, especially for smaller parks or attractions, not even smaller, just, there's so many. I go, how many, and I have clients that are doing it like as we speak. We're doing it in-house. We're doing the social media in-house. We're community managing it. And I go, do you even know what that means? So here's the thought, is that here's where you win the game against the big guys, because the big guys got a team out in, probably Dubai somewhere, and they're just answering people all day.
Yeah.
You don't have that. But here's what you do. You've got to plan, schedule, and strategize great creative and get it out the door, and make sure that it's not something you're bootstrapping on a moment-to-moment basis. After you've accomplished that process and that operational, process, you're reactive. Now you can follow along and respond to people's comments and people's complaints or reviews. And, one of the biggest mistakes I see businesses, especially in the attraction world, where there's a lack of response to comments. Everybody's a Yelp soapbox reviewer. We get it. I don't love Yelp. I don't really take a lot of, but if I see enough bad reviews for something in Yelp, I go, if there's smoke, there's fire. Somebody missed their shift, didn't clean the bathroom. Yeah. So you got that one guy that loves to post shit on Yelp, right? When I have a client that has that problem, the first thing I do is look at that person that's complaining, and I go back in and I look at all their reviews, the reviews they do. And I go, you know what? You're just a complainer. You're a curmudgeon. You're a pain in the ass. That's all you do. And, the other side of it, I've had clients and I've seen businesses reward bad behavior.
Yeah.
Someone complains, they give you a gift card or a free ticket next time. That's not how you do it. Don't reward the bad behavior.
Right.
Address it and be honest and be upfront and look into why this person's saying this. If it's not warranted, move on. But if it is warranted, admit it, own it, and own up to it. So social media to me is a place where these businesses can thrive if they just pay a little bit more attention to the people commenting. Because a comment, to me, commenting on people's posts or commenting on other people's, content and responding to the people that comment on your stuff, that does just as much, if not more, than all the posts you did last week.
Right. No, I 100% agree. I think engagement on, especially on social media, is so important. But also, when I'm looking at reviews, you're right. Oftentimes I will look at how they responded because I
Yeah,
do want to give people the benefit of the doubt because I do recognize that you cannot make everybody happy.
right.
If you're out there trying to make everybody happy, there are just some people on this planet that will never be able to be made happy, and you can't judge businesses based on that group of people. Because
Mm-hmm.
you're right, they're going to be out there, and for whatever reason, they tend to be like keyboard warriors more than the rest of us.
Sure,
I don't
sure.
even understand it, but it's
They're,
there, which is why
they're
it's
there. What are you
important.
going to do? They've
But
got a
that's
platform. They want to be on it. Cool. You know,
right. Well, and that's why how a business responds to it is so important because that's marketing in and of itself.
right,
That's the thing that you mentioned, discussing your values. And I love that you said, don't correct bad behavior or don't reward the bad behavior, right?
right.
Because at the end of the day, you can't make everyone happy.
Yeah.
It was interesting because one other thing that you said with regards to training. So I was with IAPA last week at
Oh,
Morgan's.
cool.
Yeah,
We have
Morgan's
clients there.
Wonderland, which is a park in Texas. Have you ever heard of that one?
What's it called?
Morgan's Wonderland.
Oh, fun. No, I
And
haven't.
it's an inspiring park. It's one of the most accessible parks in the world at this point. They've done wonders with building wheelchairs that are just it just blows my mind that can now go into water parks. So
Yeah.
everybody's having the experience together. It's such an amazing thing, and they've done so great at how they are marketing and showing who they are and the mission that they have, and I just was thrilled to be there and see all of this. But it was interesting because I had a conversation because I guess they, with somebody on the team, I guess they, because of the nature of their audience, some people get overstimulated and have a hard time. So they have these rooms
Yep.
where people can go and chill out,
Chill. Right.
get themselves together and then
Love
go
that.
back and have fun, right?
Yep.
Because we need that sometimes. Look, I need that
Oh,
sometimes
yeah.
when
I
I'm taking
love
3 kids
that.
to a park. It's great, but it was interesting. Somebody said, "So do you market this?" And they said, "Well, we don't market it
Ah,
because, we don't market it because we just train the team so everybody knows that if they see a family in need of this, they can tell them because they had limited spaces, which made sense. Like they had limited spaces, so their team is fully trained. And I actually thought that was a good answer because I think
it's
in
great.
some cases you could go to one of these boutique attractions that are smaller that maybe their team isn't as well trained, and they would say I don't know, but that's not what you're going to get over there.
Right.
And that's where
Now,
the marketing extends, I think, what you're
yeah.
saying beyond what's out there into your team.
And I love that. And for places like that too, I think that people want to know that there's real people there and who they are. And when you make those connections, why not highlight certain team members? You know what I mean?
Right.
It doesn't matter that they're not there for life. It doesn't matter. Who cares? On especially on social media because you are able to your content. You can make mistakes. You can I do all the time. Everybody does. And 90 minutes later, that post is gone. It's down the bottom of the thing
Yeah.
and probably never see the light of day again. I was going to ask you, so it's Morgan's Wonderland. What do they do? What's the sort of theme? What's the vibe? What's the
Well, so Morgan was the son of the man who built the park,
okay?
and I know I'm going to kind of butcher his story, but he had taken his daughter, and she's nonverbal, to
Yep.
a park, and I don't know if it was Disney or but one of these big resorts,
Yep.
and they had a day off. They were in the pool, and I mean, this story I heard him talk about last year to IAPA, and I've just kind of been following what they're doing, but he said that she was in the pool, like at a water park. She wanted to play with the other kids, and she couldn't communicate verbally, and all the kids ran from her screaming, and she was just devastated. And he said, I'm going to build a place where no kid ever has to feel like that again.
Love that.
It
Love
is
that.
such an incredible place. And
Oh, it's in
I,
San Antonio.
it's in San Antonio. It's such an incredible place. Like, just a beautiful experience. It was great. We got to be there when they were open and see the families and the smiles, and just yeah, it was a really, really cool experience. But one of the things that resonated with me the most, or stuck with me the most, was not just the incredible and inspiring things that they're doing, but the fact that their team was so prepared to handle the situations and the unique needs of their guests, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And you don't have that at a lot of parks. You just
No,
don't.
no.
And to me, that was a huge part of the brand
I love
that they
that, and
got
I'm
right.
looking at the site and going, "Oh my god." So I love this, and I look at this and go, and this, whether it works for these guys or not, but it could. But I think for any park like this, right? When we talk about extending the experience, if you've got a theme or characters or something, why not bring them to life on social media? Why not take an element of that park, give it its own profile, give it its own voice, and let it speak for itself? And I look
Right.
at that and go, it's so fun and it can be so effective. I used to do it for books when I was doing book narratives. I would take like the main character of the book and I'd create an entire Twitter profile based on that, and
Yeah,
then
that's
just
awesome.
let people engage with the character
Right.
itself. But like I look at this and I go, something like this, I go, there's a story to be told here, and I don't know enough to say whether they're telling it really well or not well, but I love that when I see this, I go, this story is so relevant and so inspirational. I'm looking at, I seeing the bugs, the dancing bugs, and all the stuff. It's a beautiful
Yeah.
looking place, and you know, different rides. The butterfly itself should have its own personality and voice, and you can bring that to life. You do not need Disney money to do so. I always tell folks, $1 million ideas, $1 billion ideas, they don't cost $1 billion to come up with. Sometimes they cost a lot of money to execute, but you can embrace those limitations and do exactly what you can do really, really well in inventive, innovative ways to push the needle further for yourself.
Well, and I think it also, they're purpose
Yep. The purpose
driven,
is
right?
amazing.
And you don't have to be this. Everybody's purpose is different, right? Like,
Yep.
we say all the time at Gatemaster, we're like, we are here to make sure all attractions massively succeed.
Yep.
That's our purpose. It's the whole reason why we exist, and everything we do goes back to that.
Yep.
All of our conversations with our team, all of our marketing with our team, everything goes back to that. And I think that's what you're saying. Somebody like this can take this so far. They don't have to be a Disney to do it. They just have to go back to, what is the story that they're telling their
If
audience?
I were consulting someone like this, I would say pick your top 3 or 4 lanes that matter, that are matter to your audience. And it's as simple as going into Google these days and saying, what questions do people have about my water park? Or what questions do people have about visiting San Antonio? And then it'll give you a list of the top questions. And then all you do is you take that list and you actually post based on those answers. You're now posting the answer that everybody's asking before they've even bothered to ask. You've now put yourself out there as a leader and as a thought leader, as an innovator, and you're answering the questions before they're asked. And that increases your business and it increases your footprint. You do not need to be Disney to take that approach.
Right. I'm just, we just had an article go out that was, I mean, one of our best articles, as silly as it sounds. One of my colleagues wrote on LinkedIn. It said, "How the chicken finger broke the business." Right? because we work in food.
Yeah.
We have a point of sale, so we're
Yep.
always working with food and beverage in these parks and attraction. And the worst thing is the chicken fingers always, right? They're always burnt. They're
Or they're
always
the
crispy.
best.
Or they're the best, right? Like, it depends on the park you're at. You're right.
Yeah.
But, especially in these small ones, they've got to improve these things because that's what you're seeing. And or it took an hour to get one, right?
Yeah,
Get them.
that's
That's
wrong.
the other thing. So, but it was just interesting because, we're not selling a system with that article. We're just trying to help them figure out like
That's what
how
it
they
is.
can improve their business. Same thing with this show. The Live
Yep.
with Sondra show came out of me going live trying to talk about all the things these businesses need and
Mhm.
attractions. Then I ended up with guests like you, which I have to say it's been just a sheer pleasure talking to you. I feel like the lucky one right now because I've
Oh,
learned so much today.
stop it.
Oh, I say all the time, like, I'm getting smarter doing this show for sure
I
because
love that.
I get to speak to people like you who are sharing just great information with businesses on how they can do better. Because ultimately, a business without branding, a business without marketing is going to have a really hard time.
Yeah, but it's hard, when you're getting started or you're in a certain position, or maybe, maybe it's the economy. People have this misconception that an agency is going to cost them north of $100,000 to even talk to, and that's just not true. There are agencies that are like that, but
Sure.
like, I try to take an approach where I go, let's work where you're at. Let's try to let's try to create a solution for where you are right now. And if we can get you through that, and we're good partners and we're reliable and we do good work together and we enjoy each other, if you grow, there's an opportunity for us to grow with you. It doesn't have to be, but like you can start with just working on the things that are where you're at right now. Uh,
Yeah.
and I think that that's so important when you realize what your competitors are doing really well. You want to make sure that you're compatible and getting there too. When you find out what your competitors are doing really wrong, that's an opportunity not to call them out. That's an opportunity to highlight that you do that really well. And I
Yeah.
love this, where everyone can play is such an important. There's a book I read a long time ago. I got to interview the author, forget their name, but it was called The Horse Boy. And it was about a nonverbal boy, father that had a son. And yeah, it's just a wonderful story about how he learned to become verbal, how he learned to, all by being around horses. And his father actually took the next step and brought him to Mongolia to travel with the Mongolian horse like farmers.
Wow.
And it, I don't want to say it cured the boy, but it brought him to a level of functionality that he would never have had through Western medicines. I'm only saying that because what a wonderful story these guys have, and it should be something that everybody's talking about.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I'm so glad that IAPA is highlighting a business like this because I do think that that is something that we need in our industry. I've said this before on the show, but I haven't said this to you. Being in attractions for the last 25 years, longer actually. I started in 1999, but
Nice.
being with Gatemaster for the last 23 years, when people hear that I work in attractions, I always get their best memory, right? Like they've always like, "Oh man, you're so lucky. We went to this park and had the greatest time," and or they're asking me my feedback. But there is one group of people that often didn't have a great time, and it was
Sure.
people who either had disabilities or families with people who had disabilities, and really it boiled down to the communication,
Yeah.
the branding, like what to expect. Nobody was talking about these things. Nobody was writing articles to help them understand their visit and to make it so that they could have the experience that they needed to have.
That's right.
So I 100% agree. I think that all of this needs to be talked about. I think for them, branding is easy, right? Because they've got this amazing thing. And
Yeah,
maybe when you're not a park that's focused on that, what is that thing that you're passionate about?
That's
Like
right.
you're saying, what is that thing that you're doing that is better than your competitors?
That's right.
You know, we had a park that was going out of business in Texas a while back, and they were going out of business because a local big mega church had just built a family entertainment center directly competing with
Oh,
theirs.
thank you.
Yeah, and this poor guy was like, "I can't compete with them. They have no taxes." You
Yeah.
know, it was
Ugh.
just this really rough situation. We said, "Go get a bar. Put a bar in.
Yeah.
Save this business," because they were not going to put a bar in. And guess what?
That's right. Oh my God. I mean, that's exactly what we're talking about is that,
Yeah.
find the weak spot. You don't have to call anybody out. Find the weak spot in the
Yeah.
armor and leverage it.
Right.
You
That's
know,
what
if
it
they
is.
suck at customer service, be amazing at customer service and tell everybody how good you
Yes.
are. I love
Yeah.
that. Yeah,
Yeah, I always say,
that's
"Go get a
great.
bar and tell everybody about it." Sure enough, save
Absolutely.
business, and, this is why I love what I do too, and
Yeah,
I'm
I
sure
bet.
you
I can
do.
tell. I
Helping
can tell.
businesses is just that, but, I do have a question for you,
Sure.
just out of because I'm also part of IAPA's Mentee Mentor program, and I currently have a mentee that is a creative
Mhm.
who really wants to get into Disney, and
Okay.
we just you know what? I said, "Just go get any job over there right now."
Yeah,
She just got hired, so I'm super
good.
excited for
What's
her.
she doing?
I think she's just a cast member, but, I say just, but that's
Yeah,
where
yeah,
you
yeah.
start. You gotta get in, right? Like,
Yeah, yeah.
you gotta start
I
somewhere.
love
You gotta be
that.
new to be anything,
That's right.
right? So, but just out of curiosity, if somebody is looking to get into this industry and get into the creative side of the business, because that's not my side of the business, but I know we've got people watching right now that probably would love to hear your take or insights on, what could somebody like that do to get started, and where should they be looking for, maybe for resources, or I don't know. I mean,
Okay.
I'm gonna send her this show because I think she's gonna enjoy it.
I love it. We had an intern who worked with us a couple of years ago, and she came to us because she was like, "I heard you worked at Disney, da 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 da," and I was like, "Cool." And then when she did a great job for us, she was a designer, and she wanted to be a designer, but she also really wanted to work at Disney someday. And you know, the opening, she landed a job at Disney as a photographer, which she was good at too, but it wasn't her passion. But she was like, I'm going to take it. And I said, get out of here. What are you waiting for? Go do it.
Yeah,
Because the only way you're going to become a designer at Disney is, who knows? But like you're already in. So get your job and work your way up. I mean, to that point, right? And this is, I'll keep it, I'll try to keep it in a nutshell. I landed at Disney. I was in a rock and roll band. I was traveling between LA and Boston, New York. And that's all I ever wanted to do with my life. But one thing that was always true was that I was a storyteller. So in a band, I was able to write music and write lyrics and perform, and I loved it. It was my passion. And when, the bass strings snapped one too many times, and I was like, I just don't want to live like this. This is hard. Um, I was like, what am I going to do? So my initial instinct was, I'll go into radio. I have a voice for radio. And, but nobody would hire me. They're like, who the hell are you? You're not in college. We can't intern you. You're like 27 years old. And so what I did was I ended up landing a job in radio first by simply going to meet someone that was working in the station. And I happened to be waiting in the lobby, and a guy walked by in a suit and said, excuse me, are you my 2 o'clock? And I said, yeah, I'm your 2 o'clock. I don't know why I said that, but I went up and to the management, department, and interviewed for a job on radio, and I got that job. So it wasn't until 5 years later when I left to go to Disney that I told him, I said, I wasn't really ever your 2 o'clock. So I put myself in the path
yes,
of where I wanted to get to, making sure that I would run into the right person. And I'm going somewhere with this. When I started my job at Disney, I just was walking down the street in my neighborhood, and I noticed this building going up, and it said Disney and ABC Radio. And I was like, oh, I'm into radio and I like Disney. So I went in and I said, what are y'all doing? And they were like, we're building a production studio. I happen to know somebody. And I was like, what can I do to help? And he's like, do you know how to hang sheetrock? And I was like, yeah, I know how to hang sheetrock. I suck at hanging sheetrock. I still do. But I said, I'll do this and I'll figure it out and I'll work here just to do it, as long as I can come back and watch the operation in progress and just try to learn something while I'm here. That's what I did. Eventually, I learned. They started to pay me. I went from being a sheetrock hanger who had no idea what he was doing to getting coffees, to writing copy, to directing talent, to voicing character voices, to producing. And then I became like the go-to brand corporate guy. So I could take any brand, any corporate sponsorship partnership and turn it into something Disney-esque so that it could be marketed on the Disney platforms. So that said, I say, get a good mentor relationship, find them everywhere and anywhere. And today there is no excuse why you can't get into anybody's inbox. It's easy. And frankly, you're going to get a lot of no's, but you're going to get a lot of yeses, because people who really are great at what they do realize that they had help getting to where they got to, and they pay it forward.
Yes.
That's how I learned. People paid it forward. And, on that point, like having an opening at Disney and taking it, no matter what it is, you do that. But practice your craft, practice your passion, figure out what it is that you do really well. I'm a designer, but there's better designers than me. I'm a video editor. There's better video producers than I am. All those things. But I'm a storyteller. I could tell a story like nobody's business. I've been doing it since I was a little kid. And I realized that all these things in marketing and advertising boil down to great storytelling. So figure out what it is you do, connect with the right people, make friends, and learn.
Yeah. And tell your story.
Tell your story.
Yeah.
But most importantly, if you see somebody doing something that you want to be that someday, put yourself in their path. I mean, literally, if you have the opportunity to meet the CEO of some company you want to work at, figure out where he gets coffee and be there. Just be there. Don't be weird and stalkery, but like, you could be there. I've done that with countless things and just happened to be in the line of coffee, with a client I wanted to land a project or close a deal with. And, the gatekeeper wouldn't let me into the CEO ever. So I put myself in a coffee line with the CEO and struck up a conversation. Next thing you know, we got a job, we got a deal.
Yeah, I love that. Show up for yourself too in those
Show
places,
up for yourself.
right? Like, I just have to say, because you remind me of a story. One of my friends, who is one of Grant Cardone's number one coaches. My husband is the performance coach. They're like the number one licensee.
Okay.
They wanted to bring the content to Dubai, the government.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, I don't know, I'm going to do this, but I'm going to do it. She got an apartment building across the street. So she got to be out there having coffee with everybody who worked there every day until she found the right person. And they have now launched all of this content and are the number one licensees for the Cardone family.
I love that.
Because she just made that move. She just took that leap of faith. She said, I'm going to go buy, I'm going to get an apartment next door, and I'm going to show up every day to see who I can cross path with. So
that's right. Opportunities don't always knock. They really don't. Sometimes you got to open the door and whistle at them and tell them to get over here. Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate you being on the show today. This was so much fun. I know we had so many more things to talk about, but I always say that means you got to come back. That's my sign.
Anytime you like, anytime. And I would love to have you on our live one of these days. Be happy to have you on a little exchange program.
But
Awesome.
Peter, before I let you go, if the audience or anyone watching would like your help or to get in touch with your company, what's the best way they can do that?
They can shoot me a direct message on LinkedIn. You'll find me there at Peter Jude Ricciardi. We are available. You can email me at peter@brandartica.agency. Not to be confused with the .com, but I don't think there is one. And I'm available that way. You can reach me. I'm most open to any chat, anytime, with anyone, because at the end of the day, I want to meet great people who are excited and want to share and want to talk. And if I can help you with what you're doing, cool. If not, maybe we just have a great connection and our circles get a little bit bigger. So on LinkedIn, you can find me. You can hit me up at peter@brandartica.agency. And
Well, hey,
That's it.
thank you again.
Shoot a flare.
I love it. I love what you said about just growing your circle too. So thank you for growing my circle today because it's
I
just
love it.
an absolute pleasure to get to know you today.
Sondra, me too. I'm so happy that you had me on, and you've got a great team. They were super communicative and made it really easy. And I
I'm so glad.
appreciate that, and I appreciate you.
Yeah, I appreciate you too. I'll see you soon.
All right.
Take care,
Cheers.
Peter. All right. Well, we had a great show today. That was a great guest. I really love the idea of storytelling, the marketing, the branding. It was something that had to grow on me in my business. If I'm being completely transparent, marketing was hard. And I think a lot of businesses and operators out there, business owners and operators out there that might have been listening today, maybe hopefully this gave you a little something to start with. Like Peter said, just start with what you got right now. Start telling those stories, start reaching out to the people that are your ideal customer in ways that resonate with them because you're telling the story. And yeah, just a really awesome guest today, super inspiring. And then also the just the gems that he shared at the end with regards to getting out there and getting in front of the people that you need to be mentored by. And I don't disagree. In today's day and age, there is no reason to not get a mentor. You don't even have to know the mentor to have a mentor. Just read their books. And we didn't mention that, but I know he's a reader, so I'm sure he would agree. Books are important too in terms of getting mentorship. So there's no reason not to have access to this data or information or to people who can help you. And yeah, I just am so excited about this show. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope that you will leave us a comment. Let us know that you were here. Hashtag replay if you're watching it on replay. We'd love to know that you're here. If you have any other questions, you want to leave it in the chat. The chat is open and we will be monitoring that over the next however long I'm in any of our shows. If you leave us a message or a chat, we'll be sure to respond to that. But thank you for listening today. Thank you for the team that helps put this show together, to Gatemaster Technology for supporting the show and the content so that we can bring you this programming. And really, thank you for listening. And I hope that the information that you get on this show helps you improve your business and helps you be massively successful at what you do. So I'll see you on the next Live with Sondra. Take care, everybody.